The HOA president's son stood over my daughter's hospital bed, and I could still see his knuckles, bruised, swollen, evidence of what he'd done. My little girl, Emma, lay motionless in that coma, machines breathing for her, and all because she'd parked in his spot. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and I'd spent 12 years as a logistics coordinator for emergency response teams. I'd mapped evacuation routes, coordinated multi-agency operations, and solved problems that seemed impossible. But nothing had prepared me for this moment. My husband Mark stood beside me, his jaw tight. Behind us, my brothers had arrived, Jake, Daniel, and Chris. All three were law enforcement. Jake and Daniel were SWAT trained. Chris was a sniper instructor. When I'd called them sobbing from the hospital, they'd dropped everything. But this wasn't what Linda Brennan, our HOA president, thought was going to happen. "Mrs. Mitchell," the doctor said softly, entering the room, "I need to explain Emma's condition again. The trauma to her head was significant. We're monitoring for brain swelling. The next 48 hours are critical." Mark's hand found mine. His grip was crushing. Linda's son, Tyler, had been arrested at the scene, witnesses everywhere. But Linda herself had shown up at the hospital an hour ago, not to apologize, to serve me with HOA violation notices. Violation notices, while my daughter fought for her life. "Your daughter's car is still parked in a reserved spot," she'd said, her voice clipped and businesslike. "That's $200 per day until it's moved. Also, you missed the monthly meeting, another $150 fine." I'd stared at her, unable to form words. Now, standing here with my brothers behind me, I felt the weight of what could happen, what they wanted to happen. Jake had barely spoken since he arrived. Daniel kept flexing his hands. Chris's eyes held that 1,000-yard stare I recognized from his deployment photos. They wanted justice, the violent kind. But would you believe me if I told you the most devastating revenge I could imagine didn't involve a single raised fist? Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't force, it's information. And I was very, very good at gathering information. If this story sounds familiar, or if you've ever faced down someone who thought their little bit of power made them untouchable, hit that subscribe button. You're going to want to see how this plays out. Let me back up and tell you how this started. 6 months earlier, Mark and I had moved into Meadowbrook Heights with Emma, who was 16 and starting her junior year. The neighborhood looked perfect. Tree-lined streets, well-maintained homes, a community pool. The HOA seemed like a minor inconvenience, not a lifestyle. Linda Brennan was HOA president, a title she'd held for 8 years. I met her during our welcome meeting, held in her immaculate living room. She was 52, blonde hair styled in a sharp bob, and she had a way of smiling that never quite reached her eyes. "Rules are what make a community thrive," she'd said, handing me a 3-ring binder. "I've highlighted the most important sections for you." The binder was 147 pages long. Her son Tyler was 19, living at home while attending community college. I'd seen him around, tall, athletic build, always wearing his high school letterman jacket despite having graduated the year before. He drove a lifted truck with exhaust modifications that rattled windows. Emma was the opposite, quiet, studious, planning to major in environmental science. She drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic that Mark and I had helped her buy with her summer job savings. The parking situation in our neighborhood was complicated. The HOA had assigned spots in front of each unit, marked with numbers. But there was also guest parking scattered throughout the complex, and those spots had become a territorial battleground Linda controlled with an iron fist. Emma came home from school one day, face flushed. "Mom, the weirdest thing happened. I parked in guest parking, spot G7, like I always do after school. And when I came back, there was a note on my windshield. She handed it to me, printed in bold letters. 'This spot is reserved. Move your car or it will be towed.' HOA management." I frowned. Guest parking isn't reserved. That's the whole point. That's what I thought. I checked the HOA bylaws that evening. Guest parking was first come, first served. No reservations, no exceptions. The next day, Emma parked in G7 again. Another note appeared. This time, final warning. I decided to attend the next HOA meeting. Linda held them monthly in the community center, and attendance was mandatory. Missing meant a $150 fine, something I found absurdly controlling, but didn't have the energy to fight yet. The meeting room was set up like a courtroom, with Linda at a raised table flanked by board members. About 30 residents sat in rows of folding chairs. The atmosphere felt oppressive, everyone sitting too straight, too quiet. Linda ran through the agenda with military precision. Landscaping updates, pool maintenance schedules. Then she reached parking violations. "We've had multiple complaints about unauthorized vehicles and guest parking," she announced. "Effective immediately, guest spots G5 through G12 are reserved for board member families and approved guests only." I raised my hand. Linda's eyes found me, and I saw something flicker there, irritation at being interrupted. "Yes, Mrs. Mitchell. The bylaws state that guest parking is unreserved. You can't just change that without a community vote." The room went silent. Linda's smile tightened. "The board has the authority to make operational decisions for community safety and order, not decisions that contradict the governing documents." I kept my voice level. "I coordinate emergency operations for a living. I understand the difference between operational flexibility and changing established rules." Several residents shifted in their seats. I noticed a few exchanging glances. Linda's expression hardened. "We'll table this discussion for now. Moving on." "I'd like it on record that I'm objecting to this parking change," I said, "and I'd like to see the board vote that authorized it." "Noted." Linda's voice could have cut glass. Next item. After the meeting, a woman approached me in the parking lot. She was about my age, with kind eyes and nervous hands that kept adjusting her purse strap. "I'm Rachel Torres," she said quietly. "I live in Unit 34. I just wanted to say, thank you for speaking up. Nobody ever challenges Linda." "Why not?" Rachel glanced around, making sure we were alone. "Because she makes life hell for anyone who does. The Johnsons in Unit 12 complained about the pool rules last year. Suddenly they were getting violation notices for everything. Weeds in their flower bed that didn't exist. Noise complaints at 9 p.m. when they were watching TV. Citations for their mailbox being the wrong shade of black." She paused. "They ended up selling and moving out. That's illegal harassment. Prove it. Linda's smart. Everything comes through official HOA channels. Everything's documented as legitimate violations. And she's got the board in her pocket. They rubber stamp whatever she wants." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What about her son, Tyler?" Rachel's expression darkened. "He's worse. Entitled, aggressive. He thinks those guest spots belong to him personally. His truck takes up 2 spaces usually, but nobody says anything because Linda's his mother." She hesitated. "Just be careful. I've seen Linda target families before. She doesn't like being challenged." Over the next month, the harassment began. First, it was small things. A violation notice because our recycling bin was 3 inches over the property line. Another because Emma's car had a parking permit that was improperly displayed. It was centered on the dashboard exactly where the rules specified. Then Linda's son got involved. Emma came home shaking one afternoon. Tyler followed me from school. He pulled up next to me at a stoplight and yelled that I needed to stop parking in his spot. My protective instincts flared. "Did he threaten you?" "He said if my piece of shit car was there again, he'd have it towed." Mark wanted to confront Tyler immediately. I held him back. "We document everything first. If this escalates, we need evidence." I started a detailed log. Dates, times, violations, interactions. I photographed everything. I recorded HOA meetings. My emergency response training had taught me that good documentation was more powerful than emotional reaction. But Linda was escalating too. A violation notice arrived claiming our lawn was 0.75 inches too tall. The fine, $500. When Mark measured, our grass was well within guidelines. We appealed. Linda denied it, saying measurements were taken by certified HOA representatives. Another notice, our house number wasn't regulation size. We'd never changed the numbers from when we bought the place. The previous owners had lived there 6 years without issue. Emma started parking on the street to avoid confrontations, but that brought its own violation. Street parking overnight prohibited without permit. The permit application required HOA president approval. Linda denied it. I knew what Linda was doing. She was building a paper trail to paint us as problem residents. Death by 1,000 cuts, each one officially documented. Rachel became an unexpected ally. She started watching Linda's movements, keeping me informed. Linda had a board meeting at her house last night, Rachel told me over coffee at my kitchen table. It wasn't on the official schedule. I saw board members arriving around 8 p.m. Secret meetings? That was a direct violation of HOA governance laws in our state. There's something else. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. I was walking my dog past Linda's house, and I heard shouting. Tyler was angry about something, and I heard Linda say, "We'll make sure that Mitchell girl learns her place." The hair on my neck stood up. She specifically mentioned Emma? Rachel nodded. I pretended I was on my phone, but I heard it clearly. Sarah, I think they're planning something. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Mark, listening to Emma's music playing softly through the walls, and felt a mother's primal fear. Linda wasn't just a petty tyrant, she was targeting my child. The next morning, I did what I do best. I started investigating. My job had taught me how to access public records, how to follow paper trails, how to spot patterns in documentation. I started with Linda's HOA management. What I found made my blood run cold. The HOA's financial records were public, filed with the county. I requested 3 years of documents. It took a week to receive them, but when I spread those papers across my dining room table, the pattern emerged. Linda had been embezzling. Not huge amounts that would trigger immediate red flags. She was too smart for that. But consistent, steady theft. Administrative fees that went to an LLC she controlled. Emergency repairs to a maintenance company that didn't exist. Legal consultations with law firms that had no record of HOA business. Over 3 years, she'd stolen approximately $127,000 from the HOA's reserve fund. My hands shook as I compiled the evidence. This wasn't just about parking spots or petty harassment anymore. This was real criminal fraud. But I needed to be strategic. If I went to the police without absolutely ironclad proof, Linda would destroy evidence and claim I was a disgruntled resident making false accusations. I needed more. Rachel helped me get it. Linda keeps a home office, Rachel told me during one of our careful conversations. She works from home most days. And Tyler, he brags about things. He told someone at the gym that his mom knows how to work the system and that she's been skimming cream for years. I created a detailed timeline, cross-referenced every suspicious transaction with HOA meeting minutes, built a spreadsheet that even a cursory examination would reveal as damning. Then Emma came home one Friday afternoon with bruised knuckles and tears streaming down her face. "Baby, what happened?" I grabbed her shoulders, checking for injuries. "Tyler," she choked out. "He was in spot G7 when I got home from school. I parked in G8 instead, the spot right next to it. When I came back from taking out the trash, he was there screaming at me. He said I was too close to his truck, that I'd scratched it." "Did you?" "No, Mom, I was so careful. But he got in my face, and when I tried to walk away, he grabbed my arm." She held out her wrist, where fingerprint bruises were already forming. I pulled away and hit the mailbox. That's where these came from. She showed me her knuckles. Mark exploded when he saw. "That's assault. We're calling the police right now." But when the police arrived, Tyler had a different story ready. "I asked her politely to move her car," he told the officers with practiced innocence. "She got aggressive and punched my truck. I never touched her. Her injured hand is from hitting my vehicle." The officers looked at Emma skeptically. Tyler pointed to a tiny scratch on his bumper, one that looked weeks old based on the oxidation. "Ma'am," one officer said to me, "without witnesses or video evidence, this is he said, she said. We can file a report, but..." The implication was clear. Nothing would come of it. Linda showed up just as the police were leaving. "Officers, I'm the HOA president. I should inform you this family has been violating community rules for months. We've documented extensive hostile behavior." I watched her spin the narrative, watched the officers' expressions shift from neutral to suspicious, directed at us. After they left, Linda turned to me. Her smile was triumphant. "Your daughter is becoming a problem, Mrs. Mitchell. Perhaps it's time to consider whether this community is the right fit for your family." "Are you suggesting we move?" "I'm suggesting that families who can't follow simple rules tend to be happier elsewhere." The threat was clear. Emma was sobbing inside. Mark was furious but helpless. And I realized that Linda thought she'd won. She had no idea what was coming. That night, I made a decision. I called my brothers, not for muscle, but for their expertise in surveillance and evidence gathering. Jake arrived the next day with equipment from his department's tech unit. "You're sure about this?" he asked as we set up discrete cameras covering our front area and the parking spots. "Linda's targeting Emma. She's got her son doing the dirty work while she maintains deniability. I need everything documented." Daniel helped me install motion-activated recording on Emma's car. Chris, the quietest of my brothers, said, "You know this could take weeks to catch anything, right? I can wait." But I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, Rachel called me at 2 a.m. "Sarah, wake up. Tyler and 2 of his friends are in the parking lot. They're doing something to Emma's car." I was out of bed instantly, pulling up the camera feeds on my laptop. Sure enough, 3 figures were gathered around Emma's Honda. Tyler was spray painting something on the hood while his friends kept watch. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my phone and started recording from our window, making sure to capture clear footage of their faces and actions. They worked for 10 minutes. When they left, I went outside and documented everything. Tyler had spray painted "Learn Your Place, Bitch" across Emma's hood in sloppy red letters. They had also slashed 2 tires and poured something, sugar, I'd learn later, into her gas tank. Emma discovered it in the morning. Her scream woke the neighborhood. Mark wanted blood. My brothers, who'd stayed at a nearby hotel, arrived within 15 minutes looking ready for war. But I had a different plan forming. "We use this," I said, showing them the footage. "But we don't play our hand yet. Linda thinks she's in control. Let's see how far she'll go." Over the next week, the harassment intensified. More violation notices. A letter from an HOA lawyer claiming we owed $3,400 in fines. A certified notice that we were being referred to collections. Linda had overplayed her hand. She was creating such an obvious pattern of harassment that even a mediocre lawyer would tear it apart. But I wanted more than a lawsuit. I wanted her finished. Rachel discovered the final piece. "There's another secret board meeting tonight at Linda's house, 8 p.m. I looked at Jake. "Can you get audio?" He smiled. "Point me to the house." At 9:15 p.m., Jake returned with a recording device. We gathered in my living room, me, Mark, my 3 brothers, and Rachel, and listened to Linda's voice coming through the small speaker. "Sick of these people thinking they can challenge me. The Mitchell woman thinks she's smart, pulling records, asking questions. We need to shut her down completely." Another board member's voice. "Linda, I'm not comfortable with—" "I don't care what you're comfortable with. I've been running this HOA for 8 years. Everything we have is because I've kept property values up and problem families out. The Mitchells are a cancer." Tyler's voice. "I can handle the daughter. One more incident, make it look like she started it. Then we've got assault charges." "Perfect." Linda's voice was pleased. "And I've already contacted a real estate investor who specializes in distress sales. Once the Mitchells have enough violations and legal trouble, they'll be desperate to sell. We buy through the LLC at below market, flip it for profit." My hands clenched into fists. They weren't just harassing us, they were running a scheme to force us out and profit from it. "How many times have you done this?" another board member asked nervously. 4 properties in the last 6 years. The Johnsons, the Patel family, the Rodriguezes, the Kims, all families who questioned my authority. All gone. We made $380,000 net from those flips. The recording continued for another 20 minutes, detailing their entire operation, the embezzlement, the fake violations, the intimidation tactics, the coordinated harassment designed to force families to sell at losses. When it finished, Rachel was crying. I knew Linda was bad, but this is organized crime. I looked at my evidence files, the financial records, the violation pattern analysis, the video footage of Tyler vandalizing Emma's car, and now this recording. "Jake, what do we do with this?" "I need to call my captain," he said. "This isn't HOA drama anymore. This is fraud, conspiracy, extortion, and vandalism at minimum." But before we could do anything, Emma came downstairs. "Mom, Tyler just texted me. He says he wants to apologize in person. He's asking me to meet him at the parking lot." Every protective instinct I had screamed danger. "Absolutely not. He says if I don't come, his mom will file trespassing charges against me for being in guest parking yesterday." It was a trap, obviously a trap. Tyler wanted to get Emma alone, probably to stage some kind of confrontation that would give them grounds for more legal action. "Here's what we're going to do," I said slowly. "Emma, you're going to text him back and agree to meet him in 30 minutes. But you're not going anywhere. I am." Mark started to protest, but I cut him off. "Trust me." 25 minutes later, I walked out to guest parking spot G7. The area was well lit, and I'd made sure every camera was recording. My brothers were positioned in strategic locations, out of sight but watching. Tyler was waiting with 2 friends, the same ones from the vandalism. They looked surprised to see me instead of Emma. "Where's your daughter?" Tyler demanded. "Emma's not coming. Whatever you have to say, you can say to me." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate with his size. "You Mitchells need to learn your place. This is our neighborhood. My mom runs things here." "Your mom is an embezzler and a fraud," I said calmly. "And you're a vandal who assaults teenage girls." His face reddened. "You can't prove anything." "I can prove everything. Financial records, video footage, recordings of your mother planning criminal conspiracies." I watched his expression shift from anger to uncertainty. "Did you really think you'd get away with it forever?" One of his friends backed away. "Tyler, man, I don't want any part of this." But Tyler was too far gone in his own entitlement. "You're bluffing. My mom has lawyers. She'll bury you." "Your mom is going to jail," I said. "And so are you if you don't walk away right now." He lunged at me. I'd expected it. My brothers had taught me defensive tactics years ago, and my emergency response training included de-escalation and self-protection. I sidestepped, and Tyler stumbled past me. Jake and Daniel emerged from the shadows. They weren't in uniform, but their bearing made it clear what they were. "Son, you need to stop right there," Jake said calmly. Tyler looked between them, finally recognizing he was outnumbered and outmatched. "This is harassment. I'm calling the cops." "Good idea," I said. "Let's all wait for them together." But before Tyler could pull out his phone, Linda's voice cut through the night. "What the hell is going on here?" She marched across the parking lot, her phone already raised, recording. "I'm documenting this assault on my son by this family and their armed associates." "We're not armed," Daniel said evenly. "And your son just attempted to assault Mrs. Mitchell. We're witnesses." Linda's eyes narrowed as she processed the situation. I could see her mind working, trying to find an angle, a way to flip the narrative. "This is private property. You're all trespassing. I'm calling the police and having you arrested." "Please do," I said. "While we wait, let's talk about the $127,000 you've embezzled from the HOA Reserve Fund, or the 4 families you've defrauded and forced out, or the conspiracy to do the same to mine." Linda's face went white. "You're insane," she hissed. "You can't possibly—" "I have your financial records, meeting recordings, video evidence of Tyler vandalizing my daughter's car, and a recorded conversation from your secret board meeting 3 hours ago, where you laid out your entire scheme." For the first time, Linda Brennan looked genuinely afraid. "That recording is illegal," she said, but her voice wavered. "Actually," Jake said, "in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording, and one of your board members has been very cooperative." Rachel stepped out from near the community center. Linda's expression crumbled into fury as she realized the betrayal. "You," Linda spat at Rachel, "you set me up. You were going to do to the Mitchells what you did to my sister," Rachel said quietly. "The Rodriguezes, that was my sister's family. You destroyed them, Linda. She's still dealing with the financial fallout." The pieces clicked into place for me. Rachel's investment in helping me wasn't just altruism, it was personal. Sirens wailed in the distance. Jake had called his captain 20 minutes ago. What was arriving wasn't a patrol unit, it was a detective squad. 3 unmarked cars pulled into the parking lot, followed by 2 patrol units. Detective Martinez stepped out, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense expression. "Mrs. Brennan," she said, "we need to talk about some financial irregularities in your HOA management. And Mr. Brennan, we have video evidence of vandalism we'd like to discuss." Linda tried one last time. "This is a misunderstanding. These people have been violating HOA rules for months. This is retaliation." "Ma'am," Detective Martinez cut her off, "we've reviewed the evidence Mrs. Mitchell provided. We've also subpoenaed your HOA financial records and obtained a warrant for your home office. You have the right to remain silent." I watched Linda's face as her world collapsed. Tyler was being led to another patrol car, his friends already giving statements about the vandalism. Board members who'd been complicit were being separated and questioned. Mark appeared at my side, putting his arm around me. "You did it," he whispered. But I felt no triumph, just exhaustion and relief that Emma was safe inside. The next morning, Emma came downstairs to find her car had been professionally detailed and repaired overnight. Courtesy of several neighbors who'd quietly suffered under Linda's regime and wanted to help, Rachel brought coffee and updates. Linda's been charged with embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Tyler's facing vandalism and assault charges. The entire board has resigned. There's going to be a special election for new leadership. What about the families they forced out? Detective Martinez said there might be grounds for civil suits. The Rodriguezes, Patel family, Johnsons, and Kims are all being contacted. Over the following weeks, the full scope of Linda's operation became public. Local news covered the story. HOA, president arrested in long-running fraud scheme. The amount embezzled was even higher than I'd calculated. Over $200,000 when everything was totaled. The civil suits began quickly. I was contacted by lawyers representing the 4 displaced families. My documentation became the cornerstone of their cases. But the moment that mattered most came 6 weeks after Linda's arrest. I was in the kitchen making lunch when Emma came home from school. She wasn't crying or scared. She was smiling. "Mom, I just parked in spot G7 because I felt like it, and nobody said anything." Such a small thing, a parking spot. But it represented so much more. Safety, justice, the right to exist in your own home without fear. That evening, I stood in that same parking lot as the sun set. The neighborhood felt different now, lighter. People were outside, actually talking to each other. The oppressive weight of Linda's control had lifted. Rachel walked over, carrying a bottle of wine. The new board voted unanimously. They're implementing oversight policies to prevent fraud, financial audits every quarter, open meetings, term limits for president. Good. There's something else. Rachel smiled. "They want you to run for HOA president." I laughed. "Absolutely not. Think about it. You'd actually make it what it's supposed to be. A community organization, not a dictatorship." I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked up at my daughter's window, where her light glowed warm against the darkening sky. She was safe. That was all that mattered. But maybe Rachel was right. Maybe the best way to prevent another Linda Brennan wasn't to walk away, but to build something better. 3 months later, at the HOA's reconstituted annual meeting, I stood before 75 residents, the highest attendance in the community's history. "I'm not interested in power," I told them. "I'm interested in making this a place where families feel safe, where rules serve the community instead of controlling it, and where no one has to be afraid of parking in the wrong spot." The vote was unanimous. Linda Brennan was convicted of fraud and embezzlement, sentenced to 4 years in prison. Tyler pled guilty to vandalism and assault, receiving probation and community service. The civil suits resulted in a $600,000 settlement fund split between the 4 displaced families, paid from Linda's seized assets and the dissolved LLC. Emma graduated high school without incident. She got into her first-choice college. Ironically, their essay prompt had asked about overcoming adversity. She wrote, "About learning that justice doesn't always come from fighting, but from methodically building an irrefutable case." The neighborhood transformed. The new board, including Rachel, who took the treasurer position, implemented transparent policies. Violation notices dropped by 94%. Property values actually increased because people wanted to live in a community run by sanity instead of fear. And every time I pull into my driveway, I see Emma's car parked confidently in guest spot G7, exactly where she has every right to be. Sometimes victory doesn't look like what you expect. It doesn't come from matching your enemy's aggression or using force to restore order. Sometimes it comes from being more organized, more patient, and more thorough than the people trying to tear you down. Linda Brennan thought she'd learned how to work the system. What she hadn't counted on was someone who understood systems better than she ever could, and who had every reason to dismantle hers piece by piece. If this story showed you that the most powerful weapon isn't always the obvious one, and that real justice comes from careful documentation and strategic patience, hit that subscribe button. Because the next time you face someone who thinks their petty power makes them untouchable, remember, there's always a paper trail. You just have to know where to look.